There was always something weird about old browser games. Even the ones that weren't even horror games still felt unsettling.
And I think I finally figured out why. Looking back at it now, I think there's a reason that many Flash games felt unsettling. It's not because they were real, it's just because they felt off. But when you're sitting alone at night hearing nothing except your computer fan and these weird low quality sound effects, they felt unsettling anyways. And honestly, no game captured that feeling better than The House. There's barely any gameplay, almost no music, yet somehow this game terrified an entire generation of kids online. And the weirdest part is, looking at it now, it doesn't even seem that scary. But back then, this thing felt cursed.
And I think a big reason for this is because how empty everything felt. There was like no music, barely any movement, and just these dark, still images and weird sounds that creeped you out. The game basically traps you inside this house and forces you to click around waiting for something to happen, which sounds kind of boring to be honest, but somehow the anticipation was worse than the actual scares. As you keep exploring the house, you slowly realize something horrible happened to the family living there. And the game never fully explains everything directly, which honestly makes it even creepier.
And honestly, I think games like this prove that horror doesn't need realistic graphics to be effective, because technically nothing in the house should be that scary. It's mostly still images, loud sound effects, and simple point-and-click gameplay. But somehow your brain fills in the gaps. I think a lot of fear also came from the environment you played these games in. Most people weren't playing this stuff during the day with friends around. It was usually late at night, alone in your room, clicking through random websites you probably shouldn't have been on. And because Flash games looked so low quality and weird, everything felt unpredictable. You never knew if the next screen was going to be harmless or something that would genuinely freak you out. But not every Flash game relied on atmosphere alone. Some of them were just genuinely weird. But not every disturbing Flash game relied on atmosphere alone. Some of them were just genuinely weird.
The Visitor was a completely different kind of Flash horror. Instead of trying to slowly build tension like The House, this game just wanted to disturb you. You basically play as this tiny alien parasite that gets stronger by consuming everything around it. And honestly, the thing that made it memorable wasn't just the gore. It was how weirdly detailed and uncomfortable the animations felt. That's another reason old browser games felt so creepy. There were almost no limits on what developers could put online back then.
Looking back, games like The Visitor almost felt like artifacts from a completely different internet. An era where Flash games could be creepy, weird, or genuinely disturbing, and nobody really questioned it. Modern horror games usually tell you exactly how to feel. But old browser games felt unpredictable, and I think that unpredictability is what made them stick in people's heads. There was no algorithm pushing polished content at you back then. You just click on random links, open random websites, and sometimes end up finding something genuinely unsettling by accident. And because of that, these games felt more personal somehow, like you discovered something you weren't supposed to find. And honestly, some of these games felt less like actual games, and more like nightmares hidden on the internet. But out of all games, Ex Mortis might be the closest thing to an actual nightmare. Everything about it felt wrong. The visuals, the atmosphere, even the way the world looked felt almost dreamlike. And like a lot of old browser horror games, Ex Mortis barely explains anything to you. You were just dropped into this dead, empty world and forced to figure things out on your own. And what made Ex Mortis so unsettling was how lifeless everything felt. There's barely any music, almost no comfort, just empty environments and distorted visuals that make the entire game feel weird. It feels less like you're playing a game and more like you're wandering through somebody's nightmare. And that feeling is what made so many old browser games memorable. Not the graphics, not the gameplay, just the atmosphere. Looking back on these games now, most of them honestly don't seem that scary anymore. But I don't think that's why people still remember them. These games came from a completely different era of the internet. An era that felt unfiltered, unpredictable, and honestly a little unsettling. And maybe that's why old browser games stuck with so many people, not because they looked realistic, but because they felt strangely real, especially when you were sitting alone at your computer screen at 2 in the morning.